Okay, right now, this second, some random thought just rolled through your head. You didn't ask for it. You didn't pick it out of a lineup. And yet that one thought, plus the 1,000 other little ones just like it, they're quietly deciding what your whole life looks like 5 years from now. Kind of wild, right? Back in 1903, a guy named James Allen wrote this tiny little book nobody really talks about. Less than 100 pages. No hype train. No marketing team. The guy wasn't famous, wasn't rich, but somehow, quietly, under the radar, this thing ended up shaping some of the toughest, most successful people who ever lived. CEOs, athletes, regular grinders just trying to get through the week. People have been passing this book around like a secret weapon for over 100 years. So here's the real question, and I actually want you to sit with this, not just nod and scroll past it. If your brain's been running the same 5 thoughts on repeat for years, whose life have you actually been living? The one you picked on purpose? Or the one your thoughts built for you while you weren't even looking? By the end of this, you're going to get why your mind isn't just along for the ride. It's the one driving, writing your story, line by line, whether you're paying attention or not. And once you see that, you don't get to unsee it. Let's get into it. Chapter 1. The Silent Architect. Picture some guy standing in front of his house. He didn't hire an architect, didn't sketch a single blueprint, and yet somehow that house turned out looking exactly like him. Messy where he's messy. Solid where he's disciplined. Falling apart right where he's been slacking for years. That house, it's not a house, that's your life. And here's the thing the architect was never missing. It's been your mind this whole time, quietly working the night shift 24/7, stacking one brick of thought on top of another, whether you were paying attention or not. Here's the part that's gonna sting a little. Nothing in your life just showed up. Not your habits, not your relationships, not even that career ceiling you keep smacking your head on. Every single one of those is basically the finished product of a thought you thought so many times it hardened into your actual character. And your character, like it or not, is the architect of your circumstances. Think about someone you know who keeps getting the same rough deal over and over. A friend who always gets played. A coworker who always gets passed over. Easy to just call it bad luck, but look a little closer, and there's usually a thought pattern running underneath the whole thing, some quiet belief they've got about themselves, playing on loop, like a song stuck in their head. They stopped. Even noticing was on, and here's the part that should actually get under your skin a little. If that's true for them, it's true for you too. Right now, there's some track playing in your head that you've heard so many times you don't even hear it anymore. And that background noise is quietly setting up your future as we speak. I'm not being poetic here for effect. Alan wasn't writing some fluffy quote for a coffee mug. He's making a claim as hard and precise as a law of physics. You think it in your gut, that's what you become. Not what you wish you'd become. Not what you hope for, what you actually become. Thought isn't some commentary running next to your life. It's the machinery underneath it, quietly shaping the raw material your whole existence gets cast from. So it's not really a question of whether your thoughts are building something. They already are, every second, whether you're supervising the job site or not. The real question is, are you the one holding the blueprint on purpose? Or are you just wandering through a house, some past, unsupervised version of you slapped together, thinking whatever thought happened to be easiest at the time? Let's make this real, because it's easy to nod along and then do nothing with it. Picture 2 people, both got laid off the same month, same city, same rough economy, identical situation. One of them spends the next few weeks thinking, over and over, yeah, this proves I was never good enough. The other spends those same weeks thinking, just as often, this is pushing me towards something I never would have chosen for myself. Fast forward 6 months. You've got two completely different people. Not because life treated them differently, because each one, without even realizing it, built a different house out of the exact same pile of bricks. And here's the part Alan wants you to actually feel, not just nod at. Circumstances are neutral. Life hands everybody basically the same. Raw material, loss, criticism, delay, rejection. What changes, person to person, is which thought gets repeated on top of that raw material until it hardens into an identity. And once it hardens, it stops feeling like a thought at all. It just feels like that's who I am. Which is exactly why almost nobody ever stops to question it. Because here's what nobody tells you, and it's the exact reason this little book has quietly survived over 100 years while 1,000 louder ones got forgotten. If thought built the house you're standing in, thought can also tear down the walls that aren't working for you anymore. But before we get into how, you need to understand how deep this actually goes. Because it's not just your circumstances your mind is shaping, it's your body, your actual health, down to the cells. And that part's stranger than anything we've covered so far. Chapter 2, The Garden Nobody's Weeding. Picture two gardens, side by side. One gets tended every day, weeded, watered, watched. The others just left alone, ignored completely. Give it a season, and you already know what happens. The tended one grows exactly what got planted. The other one grows whatever the wind blows in weeds, thorns, garbage nobody chose. Your mind is that plot of dirt. And here's the part almost nobody stops to think about. A garden left alone doesn't stay empty. It doesn't politely wait around for you to decide what to plant. It fills itself with whatever seeds happen to land there. Worry lands there. Comparing yourself to everyone lands there. Old grudges land there and take root without asking permission. This is exactly why people say things like, I don't even know why I think this way. Like their own brains, some stranger's house they wandered into by accident. It's not a mystery though. It's just an untended garden. Every random thought you let repeat, every fear you rehearsed 1,000 times without clocking it, every little bit of self-doubt you let slide, those were seeds, and seeds grow, whether you're paying attention or not. Here's where it gets personal. Think about the last time you caught yourself spiraling, replaying an argument, imagining a failure before it even happens, assuming the worst about a text that hasn't even been answered yet. That spiral didn't come out of nowhere. You planted an earlier version of it weeks, months, maybe years back, and just forgot you ever did. And here's the part that's meant to sting, a little, on purpose. You can't have an abundant life while you're secretly gardening scarcity in your head. You can't expect calm relationships while you're quietly growing suspicion in private. Your outer garden career, friendships, body, peace of mind can only ever grow what your inner garden was planted with. No exceptions. Not for lucky people, not for talented people, not for you. But here's the good news hiding inside that hard truth, and honestly, it's the whole reason this idea outlived its author by 100+ years. The gardener is never a hostage to the garden. The second you decide to pull one weed, one repeating fear, one habitual complaint, one small grudge, and swap in a thought you actually chose on purpose, you've already changed the harvest. Not someday, right now. Most people spend their whole lives waiting for their circumstances to get better so their mind can finally relax. Alan flips that completely. He says circumstance is downstream of thought, not the other way around. And if that's true, if your outer world really is just the shadow your inner world's casting, then forcing your circumstances to change without touching the thoughts underneath is basically painting over mold. It's coming back. Here's a little experiment. Costs you Nothing. For one whole day, every time you catch a negative thought looping, same worry, same self-trash talk, same complaint, don't fight it. Don't shove it down. Just notice it and quietly go, even out loud. Oh, there's that seed again. Most people who try this are honestly shook by how often the exact same handful of thoughts show up, just wearing different outfits. It's rarely hundreds of different worries. Usually it's like 3 or 4 repeat offenders in disguise. And once you can actually see them clearly, something remarkable happens. A weed you can name is a weed you can pull. It's the ones running in the dark, the ones you've never once questioned, because you just assumed they were facts about you. Those are the ones doing the real damage, year after year. So real talk, which one are you right now? The gardener, deliberately choosing what grows? Or has that garden been left alone so long, you started calling the weeds just how I am? Because next up, we're going into something even wilder proof that this garden thing doesn't just mess with your mood or your luck. It messes with your actual physical body. And once you hear this, you're never gonna look at a headache, a stomach knot, or a sleepless night the same way again. Chapter 3. The body keeps the receipts. Here's a question nobody asks out loud. Why do some people age like fine wine, sharp, calm, clear-eyed at 80, while other people look completely worn out by 40? Genetics plays a part, sure. But Alan's pointing at something a lot less comfortable to admit. The body is, in his words, an obedient servant of the mind. Think about the last time anxiety had you in a chokehold for weeks. Did you sleep well during that stretch? Was your stomach calm? Your skin, your energy, the way you carried yourself? Did any of that feel like you on a good day? No, of course not. Because the body isn't just a passenger riding along with your thoughts. It executes them. Like a servant following orders it was never even given out loud. This isn't some mystical vibe. You already know it's true. You've lived it. Shame makes people slouch, like the body's literally trying to disappear. Confidence makes people stand taller, unconsciously, without a single posture lesson. Chronic bitterness carves itself into somebody's face over the years, until strangers can read it at a glance. Your body's been taking dictation from your mind since day one. It has never once stopped transcribing. And here's the part that turns this from interesting fact into, okay, we actually need to talk about this. Most people try to fix the body without ever touching the mind, giving it the orders. Perfect diet, perfect sleep schedule, perfect supplement stack. Meanwhile, lying awake every night running the same anxious loop that's been quietly wearing the body down for years. That's like mopping the floor under a busted pipe instead of just fixing the pipe. Alan's take here is blunt and honestly kind of unsettling. Sickness and health both have roots that go deeper than biology alone. A mind fed on fear, resentment, and garbage thoughts is eventually going to build a body to match tense, drained, worn thin. But a mind that's kept deliberately clean, focused, calm, becomes, quite literally, the architect of good health. Not overnight, not magic, but steady the way water carves stone, patient, and it doesn't miss. There's also a quieter version of this that's got nothing to do with actual illness, just that bone-deep tiredness so many people carry that no amount of sleep seems to fix. Ask around, and you'll notice something curious. The people complaining about being bottomlessly tired usually aren't the ones working the longest hours. They're usually the ones carrying the heaviest unresolved thought, something unsaid, guilt nobody's dealt with, a worry they rehearse every night before bed. The body isn't tired from the work. It's tired from running the same background program on a loop, year after year, with no permission to ever shut down. Think of the healthiest, most alive-looking older person you personally know. Chances are, they're not just physically disciplined, they're mentally light, unburdened. They let things go instead of hoarding grudges for decades. That's not some coincidence. Alan's asking you to just believe. It's a pattern you've probably already clocked without ever naming it. There's a reason doctors have started paying way closer attention to this connection in recent years, even outside any spiritual framework. Chronic stress hormones don't just make you feel tense, they measurably wear down the very systems that keep a body resilient over time. Alan didn't have a lab. He didn't need one. He just watched people closely enough, for long enough, to notice a pattern medicine's been spending the last century catching up to. Sustained mental states leave an actual physical signature, whether anyone was looking for it or not. Flip it around too. You ever notice how one piece of genuinely great news can instantly wipe out physical exhaustion? Somebody's been dragging all week, totally drained, and then one amazing text comes through, and suddenly they've got energy again. Energy that was apparently there the whole time, just buried under whatever their mind had been carrying. The body didn't change. The instructions changed. So here's the real question worth sitting with. What has your mind been quietly instructing your body to do for the last 5 years? And if the answer makes you a little uncomfortable, good. That discomfort means you're finally paying attention to the architect instead of just living in the house. Because once you get that your body's only following orders, the next question becomes impossible to dodge. If thought shapes health and thought shapes circumstance, what happens when thought has no clear direction at all? What happens to a mind with no destination? That's exactly what's next. And it explains why so many hardworking, talented people still. Chapter 4, The Ship Without a Harbor. There's an image Alan keeps coming back to that's hard to forget once you've heard it. A ship with no destination. Picture it drifting out in open water, not broken, not sinking, perfectly capable of sailing anywhere. But because it's got no harbor in mind, every gust of wind becomes an obstacle instead of a help. It just drifts at the mercy of whatever current happens to push it. That ship is basically any person moving through life with no real purpose. And I'm not talking about lazy people here, often the total opposite. A lot of these people work like crazy, but hard work with no direction is just drifting fast. They're up early, answering every email, grinding every single day, and years later they look up and realize they've just been getting pushed around by circumstance the whole time, mistaking motion for actual progress. This is one of the quietly most brutal realities of modern life. So many people are exhausted not because they're doing too much, but because none of it points anywhere. Every task feels urgent, and none of it feels meaningful because there's no harbor to measure the trip against. Busyness ends up standing in for direction, and it fools almost everybody, at least for a while. Alan's answer here is almost stupidly simple, which is exactly why people sleep on it. Lock one clear purpose in your mind, consistently enough, and your circumstances literally start rearranging themselves around it. Not some vague, wishful thinking magic. It's because a mind with a fixed harbor in view starts filtering everything through that lens. It spots opportunities the drifting mind would have sailed straight past. It says no to distractions the drifting mind would have said yes to, simply because it's got no reason left to say yes. Think about the sharpest, most locked-in person you know, the one who plows through obstacles that stop everybody else cold. It's rarely because they're smarter or luckier. It's because they know exactly which harbor they're sailing toward, and that clarity works like a compass a drifting ship will never have. Here's the part that should genuinely worry you if you don't have this clarity yet. A mind with no purpose doesn't stay empty for long, same as an unweeded garden doesn't stay bare. It fills up with worry, distraction, other people's expectations, borrowed goals that were never really yours to begin with. You end up chasing someone else's harbor, wondering why getting there feels so hollow. Here's an actual way to test this in your own life. instead of just agreeing with it in theory. Pull up your calendar from the last 2 weeks. Not your goals, list your actual calendar, the real receipts of where your hours went. That calendar is a way more honest map of your harbor than anything you'd say out loud, because a ship's real destination is never in its stated intentions, it's in its actual course. If your hours were mostly spent reacting to messages, other people's emergencies, whatever felt loudest in the moment, that's the drifting ship. No matter how good your intentions sound on paper, this isn't a guilt trip. Most people drift not because they're careless, but because nobody ever taught them purpose has to get renewed daily, kind of like a muscle that weakens the second you stop using it. A harbor you picked once, years ago, and never revisited. It just fades into the background noise of daily survival. That's not failure. That's just what happens to any direction that isn't actively kept alive. So ask yourself straight up, no sugarcoating. If your ship is moving, where's it actually headed? Not where you'd say you're headed at a party. Where your daily thoughts and choices are actually steering you, whether you've admitted it to yourself yet or not. Because purpose alone isn't the finish line. Even a ship with a clear harbor still has to survive the storm on the way there. And what decides whether somebody actually reaches their destination or gets wrecked halfway is something Alan calls the single most underrated force in all of human achievement. That's exactly where we're headed next. Chapter 5, the forge behind every achievement. Every achievement you've ever looked up to, the business built from nothing, the skill mastered over a decade, the life quietly rebuilt after everything fell apart. They all share one invisible ingredient that never makes the highlight reel. Not talent, not luck, not even opportunity. It's sustained, deliberate thought held steady long after the initial excitement's completely worn off. Here's what nobody wants to admit about achievement. The start is easy. Anybody can feel pumped for a week straight. The real forge, the place where character actually gets shaped, is the stretch after the motivation dies. When the only thing keeping somebody moving is a thought, they decided to keep thinking on purpose, even when it's not effortless anymore. Think about anybody you've watched build something real over the years. Somewhere in that story, guaranteed there was a stretch where quitting would have been way easier, where the outcome was genuinely up in the air, where doubt was the loudest voice in the room. What separated them from the version of themselves that gives up wasn't some superhuman confidence. It was a mind trained to keep coming back to the same governing thought over and over, until that thought got stronger than the doubt trying to drown it out. This is where Alan's idea gets almost uncomfortably practical. He's not describing some rare gift only special people get. He's describing a skill, the skill of pointing repeated thought at a chosen outcome, instead of letting it drift wherever fear or comfort happens to pull it. And like any skill, anybody with zero natural advantage can build it, just through reps. There's a specific moment worth studying close, right after a setback, before you've even decided what it means yet. In that narrow window, your mind's genuinely open, genuinely undecided, for maybe a few seconds. Almost nobody notices this window exists, because the next thought rushes in so fast and feels so automatic, it seems like it was never even a choice. But it was. It always is. The forge isn't the setback itself. It's that few-second window, repeated hundreds of times over a lifetime, where one thought or another gets picked, mostly out of habit, to fill the silence. Think about how differently two people can respond to the exact same setback. One instantly thinks, "Yeah, I knew this wouldn't work," and stops. The other thinks, "This is the part where most people quit," and keeps going. Same exact event. The only difference is which thought each of them trained themselves to reach for first. That one difference, repeated enough times, is literally the whole gap between the person who makes it and the person who almost did. Here's a sentence worth sitting with. Achievement was never really about the goal. It's about becoming, through repeated thought, the kind of person the goal actually requires. The business doesn't get built, and then the person changes to match it. The person changes first, quietly, thought by thought, and the business is just the visible proof that the transformation already happened, invisibly, in the mind. There's a reason so many people quit at almost the exact same spot in any long grind, not right at the start when energy's high, and not near the finish when the end's in sight. They quit somewhere in that dead zone middle, the stretch with zero encouragement and zero proof anything's actually working. That featureless middle is the forge Alan's talking about. It's not out to get you, it's just testing which thought you actually kept picking when nobody was rewarding you for picking it. Think about the middle of any pursuit you've bailed on before. Chances are, it wasn't some dramatic, unbearable event that killed it. It was something quieter belief, slowly eroding, one unremarkable day at a time, until the original thought that kicked the whole thing off just wasn't strong enough anymore to beat the doubt. That's not some flaw unique to you. That's basically what happens to almost everybody who's never deliberately trained the skill of coming back to a chosen thought on command. So the real question is never, do I have what it takes? That question assumes talent's fixed and handed out unfairly. The real question is, which thought am I willing to keep choosing on purpose on the days it'd be way easier to just not think anything at all? But strength of thought alone still isn't the final piece, because a mind can be disciplined, locked in, and still aiming way too low. There's one more layer here, the part that explains why some people build good lives, while a rare few build lives that seemed straight up impossible from where they started. And it starts with something most adults were quietly taught to give up on a long time ago. Chapter 6, the dream they told you to grow out of. Somewhere around adulthood, most people go through a quiet little funeral nobody announces, not for a person, for a dream. That one you had as a teenager. The one that felt almost embarrassingly big at the time. The one you eventually learned to call unrealistic and just stopped bringing up. Nobody rings a bell for this funeral. It happens gradually, one small compromise at a time, until the dream is gone, and you don't even remember exactly when it left. Alan's response to this quiet giving up is one of the most defiant ideas in the whole book. The visions you're still, quietly, holding on to, the ideals you keep to yourself, the ambitions you've learned to downplay in conversation, those aren't childish nonsense you're supposed to outgrow. He calls them prophetic. They're the blueprint of what you're actually capable of becoming, sketched out before you even had the skills to build it. And the fact that it feels far away right now doesn't mean it's fake. Here's an image worth sitting with. A sculptor doesn't look at a block of marble the way everybody else does. Everybody else just sees a rock. The sculptor sees the finished figure already hiding inside it, waiting to be uncovered. Your current circumstances are that block of marble. Your vision, the one you stopped saying out loud years ago, is the shape hiding in there. The tragedy isn't that the shape doesn't exist. The tragedy is how many people put the chisel down just because the marble didn't look finished on day one. Think honestly about the ambition you quietly buried. Did you bury it because it was genuinely impossible? Or because it was inconvenient? Because it needed a version of you that didn't exist yet? Because holding on to it made your comfortable, everyday choices feel small by comparison? Most buried dreams weren't killed by reality. They were killed by impatience, with the gap between where somebody stood and what they could actually see. This is exactly why Alan's saying the dreamers, not the cynics, are the ones actually moving the world forward. Every comfort you rely on today, every piece of tech, every freedom, all of it started out as somebody's private, unrealistic vision that they simply refused to let die on schedule. The cynic was always technically right that it seemed impossible. The cynic was also always the one left behind. Here's the part that's both a warning and a relief at the same time. Your current circumstances aren't evidence against your vision. They're just unfinished marble. The block always looks rough before the sculpture shows up. Judge the vision by how far off it looks right now, and you'll bury it exactly like you buried the last one and the one before that. Here's what makes this even harder to actually face. The people around you are rarely going to hype you up to dig up an old vision. Not because they wish you harm, it's just that your buried dream quietly reminds them of the one they buried too. And it's more comfortable for everybody if nobody digs. That's why reviving an old vision often feels lonelier than just abandoning one. The whole crowd's standing at the funeral, not the resurrection. But notice something here. Alan never claimed every vision plays out exactly how you first imagined it, or on the timeline you originally wanted. The sculptor doesn't finish the statue in one afternoon either. What he insisted on is simpler, and honestly more demanding. The vision itself isn't the lie. Giving up on it too soon, mistaking unfinished marble for a final verdict, that's the actual mistake almost everybody makes, at least once. So here's the honest question, and it's uncomfortable precisely because it matters. What vision did you quietly retire years back, telling yourself you'd just gotten more realistic? And what would it cost you 10 years from now to keep believing that story? Because holding a vision, even a big one, still isn't the final piece. There's one more thing Alan insists on. The one thing that decides whether somebody chasing a big vision ends up at peace or completely burnt out and consumed by the chase. And it might be the single most slept-on idea in the whole book. Chapter 7, The Mirror Nobody Told You About. Here's something almost everybody's felt at least once, but never really stops to think about. You meet someone new, and within minutes, some instinct in you already knows how this relationship's going to feel. Not the facts yet, just the vibe. And weirdly, that first gut read is usually right, way more often than pure coincidence should allow. Alan's explanation for this is unsettling, in a good way. People get drawn to you, and you to them, not mainly by circumstance, but by a kind of resonance between inner states. A mind stuck in suspicion doesn't just feel suspicious, it quietly, invisibly attracts situations and people that end up giving it something legit to be suspicious about. A mind full of generosity doesn't just feel generous, it pulls generosity out of people who might have never shown that side to anybody else. Think about someone in your life who always seems to bring out the worst in the people around them, without ever doing anything you could actually point to directly. And think about someone else. With the opposite effect, people get calmer, more honest, more like their best selves, just being near them. Neither of these people is doing anything dramatic on purpose. They're just broadcasting, silently, the thought pattern they've been repeating for years, and everybody around them is responding to a frequency they can't name, but can absolutely feel. This explains something that trips a lot of people up about relationships, why the same type of difficult person keeps popping up in someone's life, across totally different jobs, cities, even decades. Easy to just call it bad luck, or blame a whole category of people. But Alan would ask the harder question, what is it in that person's inner world that keeps calling out to the same frequency over and over, just wearing a different face each time? And to be clear, this isn't about blaming victims of actual harm. Cruelty exists in the world, independent of anybody's inner state, and none of this excuses it. But for the subtler, repeating stuff, the friend who always lets you down, the type of partner who always falls short the exact same way, there's almost always an inner pattern worth checking honestly, instead of just assuming the world keeps dealing you a bad hand at random. Here's the hopeful flip side though. If your inner world's been quietly attracting a certain type of person or situation, changing that inner world changes what gets attracted next, not overnight. Not by forcing it, more like a tuning fork. Once you adjust it, it just starts resonating on a different frequency in the room. No fighting, no convincing required. So here's a question worth actually sitting with. When you look at the pattern of people who've come and gone in your life, what do the difficult ones have in common? Not with each other, with something in you. That's an uncomfortable question. It's also the exact one that, once you answer it honestly, quietly changes who shows up next. But even once your outer world starts reflecting a healthier inner one, there's still all those ordinary, unremarkable days in between the big realizations, the random Tuesdays and Wednesdays where nothing dramatic happens at all. And it's actually in that boring stretch way more than in any single light bulb moment, that everything we've covered either gets built or quietly falls apart. Chapter 8. The Grind of the Ordinary Day. Here's a pattern interrupt worth sitting with. Almost nobody fails at bettering themselves because they didn't have a big enough vision. They fail because the vision only ever gets attention on the dramatic days after a health scare, after a breakup, after hitting some rock bottom loud enough to force them to notice. Then, a few weeks later, some regular Tuesday rolls back around, nothing urgent's happening, and the whole effort just quietly fizzles out. This is exactly why Alan puts so much weight on the small, repeated, kind of boring act of directing your thoughts daily instead of waiting on some dramatic moment of resolve. One powerful realization, no matter how moving, doesn't rebuild a life. What rebuilds a life is the unglamorous repetition of that realization on a day when literally nothing is forcing you to remember it. Think about the difference between somebody who decides to change after a crisis versus somebody who's quietly practiced directing their thoughts every single day for years, crisis or no crisis. When the next hard thing inevitably shows up, and it always does, which one of these two handles it steadier? Not the one who only trains during emergencies, the one who already built the muscle on the ordinary days when nobody was watching and nothing seemed to be on the line. This is the least exciting part of this whole philosophy, and precisely because it's the least exciting, it's the part almost everybody skips. It's way more satisfying to have one dramatic insight than to repeat some small, quiet act of mental discipline on a random Wednesday afternoon when you're tired and nobody would even notice either way. But Alan's blunt about it. The ordinary day, done consistently, beats the extraordinary moment, done once and then forgotten. Here's a stupid simple practice worth trying. Every morning, before anything else grabs your attention, pick one single thought, one governing idea you want quietly running in the background all day, kind of like background music shaping a room without anybody consciously clocking it. Could be as simple as, today I respond instead of react, or today I'm looking for evidence for my vision instead of against it. The size of the thought matters way less than the fact that you actually chose one on purpose before the day chooses one for you by default. Because remember that garden from earlier. If you don't plant something on purpose, something's still going to grow. Always does. The only real choice any of us actually get every single day is whether we're the ones doing the planting. Chapter 9. The Calm in the Middle of the Storm. Here's something almost nobody expects to find in a book about ambition and achievement. A whole chapter saying the calmest person in the room is usually the most powerful one. That being calm, not intense, is the real mark of a disciplined mind. Think about the people you genuinely look up to, the ones who handle pressure without falling apart. It's rarely the loudest person in the room. It's almost always somebody quiet, steady, unshaken, somebody who clearly went through real stuff and came out calmer, not harder. That calm isn't some personality trait they were just born with. Alan's saying it's the visible result of a mind that's been deliberately, patiently trained, the same way strength is the visible result of a body that's been deliberately, patiently trained. Here's the part worth really sitting with. Calm isn't the absence of struggle. It's what's left after somebody's already been through the fire, enough times that the fire doesn't run the show anymore. A calm mind isn't one that avoided hardship. It's one that's processed hardship so many times, it doesn't react to every single wave the way it used to. This matters more than it seems, because a mind with no calm sabotages literally everything we've covered so far. You can have crystal clear purpose and still panic yourself off course. You can hold a huge vision and still burn out, chasing it too anxiously to think straight. You can discipline your thoughts brilliantly and still crumble the second reality doesn't cooperate on schedule. Calm isn't some bonus feature stacked on top. It's the container keeping everything else from spilling out under pressure. Think about the last time you made a genuinely good call while panicking. Yeah, you can't. Fear and clarity have never once shared a room for long. That's exactly why the calmest person in a crisis, not the loudest, not the most frantic, is usually the one everybody quietly turns to. Their steadiness isn't passive. It's the most active, most disciplined thing happening in the whole room. Think about the gap between somebody who reacts to bad news in half a second and somebody who pauses, breathes, and only responds after the initial jolt's passed. That second person isn't suppressing anything. They're just operating from a mind that's already done enough inner work that it doesn't need the emergency of the moment calling the shots. That pause, small as it looks from the outside, is often the single most powerful move anybody makes all day. And here's the quiet promise hiding in all this. Calm is available to literally anybody willing to do the same slow, unglamorous work we've been talking about this whole time tending the garden, picking the harbor, repeating the disciplined thought, protecting the vision. Calm doesn't get handed to the lucky few. It gets built, thought by thought, exactly like everything else we covered. So here's the last question, and it's really the same one this whole thing's been circling since chapter 1. What's the one thought, repeated daily, you're willing to commit to starting today, knowing that this one choice, more than any circumstance around you, is what finally builds the life you've been quietly waiting for somebody else to hand you? Because nobody else was ever going to hand it to you. The architect was always you. There's a weirdly comforting thing about realizing your mind's been building your life this whole time. It means nothing about your future's actually locked in. Not your circumstances, not your health, not that ceiling you've been quietly banging your head on for years. All of it's still just unfinished marble, waiting on a steadier hand to pick the chisel back up. Think back over everything we just walked through. The silent architect, stacking bricks whether you're supervising or not. The garden that fills itself with weeds if you never plant anything on purpose. The body, quietly taking dictation from the mind. The ship, drifting with no harbor. The forge, that only shapes character in that unglamorous middle stretch. The buried vision, waiting in the marble. The mirror, reflecting your inner world back at you through other people. The ordinary Tuesday, where everything actually gets decided. And finally, the calm that holds all of it together under pressure. None of these are separate ideas, by the way. It's one single idea, looked at from 9 different angles. Thought, repeated long enough, becomes destiny. James Allen wrote this back in 1903 in a tiny book most people have literally never heard of, and somehow it explains more about why some lives quietly transform and others quietly stall out than almost anything written since. The idea is simple enough to say in one sentence. It's demanding enough to take a whole lifetime to actually live out. But here's something we haven't even touched yet. Something Allen only hints at, almost like an afterthought, near the very end of his book. He's saying once a mind's actually mastered its own thoughts, it eventually stops working just for itself and starts working, almost effortlessly, for everybody around it too. What does a mind like that actually look like in a real, everyday life? That's exactly where we're headed next time.